Hello, I'm Cath. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is a video I've been wanting to film for quite a while now, and it is my top ways for getting your sewjo back. So I know all of us as sewists sometimes go through phases where we're lacking the motivation or the inspiration to start a new sewing project, and it can be a bit disappointing because sewing is like such a lovely hobby and we just want to actually be able to get on with it and enjoy it. So I decided to brainstorm all of my top ways for getting my sewjo back, because I definitely had periods where I'm not really feeling the sewing and I need to think of something to do to get me back into it. So I'm going to share all of my top ideas. I've got 9 different options for you to try if you're wanting to regain that sewjo. So I'm going to get straight into it and go through all of my 9 ideas. So my first idea or top tip for getting your sewjo back is to sew up a simple and speedy, tried and tested pattern. So for me, that'll be something like a simple jersey t-shirt like I'm wearing today. I choose a pattern where I've sewn it up a few times before, so I don't have to think too hard about it during the sewing process. And I know it's going to be a successful make and it's going to fit well, and it doesn't take too long, so it doesn't require too much energy. So really a palette cleanser project, and I find often once I've done one of my palette cleanser projects, I start thinking about what I'd like to sew next, and my enthusiasm and my sewjo starts to go right back up again. My second tip is to take a bit of time to organise your fabric stash. So I would recommend getting out all of the fabrics you haven't sewn with and making some sort of list or inventory of them. And there are loads of great apps you can use online to help you do that. For example, there's Trello, and there's also Stash Hub, which is a purpose-built app for categorising your sewing stash. I personally just use a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. I've got a spreadsheet with details of all of the fabrics I haven't sewn with. I've added on details like whether I've pre-washed those fabrics and also any pattern ideas I had for each fabric. And I find that getting organised and having a clear idea of what you've got in your stash can start to help you feel more on top of things and therefore ready to start another sewing project. And also when you're going through your stash, you might find a piece of fabric you'd forgotten about or that you get inspired by that might then start to get your creative juices flowing and get that sewjo back. And similar to my top tip number 2, my top tip number 3 is to organise your pattern stash. And I find when I go through my pattern stash, I sometimes find an old favourite pattern that I suddenly think I would really like to revisit. Or I might discover a pattern I haven't actually tried to date, and I might think now is the time to give that a go. My top tip number 4 is to get your fabric scraps out and try a scrapbusting sewing project. I find using up fabric scraps can be really satisfying and energising too, and also there's not too much pressure because they're only offcuts from other projects. One of my favourite scrapbusting projects is to make handmade knickers. I find they don't take too much fabric, they're quite a speedy sew, and they're a really useful item to have too. And I think trying out a scrapbusting project can get you back in the sewing zone and motivated to then try another sewing project. My top tip number 5 is to have a bit of a wardrobe clear out. I find clearing a bit of space in the wardrobe can then create some room for new garments, but also it'll start you thinking about what you might be missing in your wardrobe, and then it might help you formulate some new sewing plans. So I'll move on to top tip number 6 now, and this is one that I've tried a few times this year and it's really got my sewing enthusiasm right back up there. And that is to refashion a garment you already have. So I've picked out a garment for my wardrobe that I'm not really reaching for, and I've analysed why I'm not really reaching for it and made some tweaks to make it work better for me. And I think when your sewjo is low, sometimes starting a whole new project can be a little bit intimidating, but it requires a little bit less energy to start tweaking a garment you already have, and it can be a lot of fun too, and I think it can boost your confidence and get you feeling ready then to tackle a new project. My top tip number 7 is to take a bit of time to tidy up your sewing space. Doing things like organising your threads or sorting through your tools. And it's sort of a sewing related activity but not actually sewing itself, and I think it can get you feeling organised and on top of things and feeling really in a good place to then start your next sewing project. My top tip number 8 is to mix it up a bit and try out a different craft instead of sewing. So for example, you could try out knitting or crochet, or maybe cross stitching or colouring in. Just something else that gives you a break from sewing and helps you to relax and then feel more restored and ready to go back to sewing, but still gives you that creative outlet in the meantime while you're having a break from sewing. I knit and also crochet as well as sewing, and I really enjoy moving between the different hobbies, and sometimes when I've had enough of one I do go away from it work on my other crafts, and when I come back to it I do feel a lot more enthusiastic and ready to get back into it with lots of energy. And that brings me to my final top tip, tip number 9, and that is just to not put too much pressure on yourself. Sewing is such a lovely hobby, and I know we all feel the pressure sometimes to be productive and make all of the lovely things, but it is supposed to be fun, and if it's not feeling fun, if it's feeling like hard work, it's absolutely okay to take an indefinite break until you're ready to come back to it with renewed enthusiasm. And I know I have to tell myself that sometimes too, and we all should, because it is a lovely fun hobby that we just want to enjoy. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found all the tips helpful, and if you're in a sewing rut at the moment, I hope it might have given you a few ideas for how to get out of it. And if your sewjo is in full swing at the moment and you're making all the lovely things, then maybe save this video in case in the future you do have a little dip and want some ideas for how to get that enthusiasm back. So if you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, please do subscribe and press the bell icon also, so you'll be notified when I bring my future videos out. But in the meantime, I hope you have a lovely day, and if you do have a chance to have some sewing time, I hope you enjoy it lots. So yeah, see you again for another video soon. Bye!